The morning the realtor's sign went up, the wind was sharp enough to sting my eyes. From my kitchen window, I watched the red sold sticker slap against the board like it was proud of itself. It stood in front of the farmhouse my late husband, Robert, built with his own 2 hands, the place where we'd laughed, argued, buried our dog, and dreamed of growing old together. Now it belonged to someone else. My daughter, Emily, had sold it. She called it a practical decision. Said the wedding venue she wanted, white chandeliers, crystal fountain, vineyard backdrop was once -in-a-lifetime. So she made her lifetime possible by selling mine. I stood there with coffee cooling in my hand, sunlight spilling over empty fields, and realized love doesn't always die when your spouse does. Sometimes it dies quietly in the choices your children make. My name is Margaret Anderson, and I'm 71 years old. I've lived in the small town of Maple Creek, Ohio, since the day Robert brought me here on our honeymoon 50 years ago. Back then, the farmhouse wasn't much, just a rectangle of peeling paint and a porch that creaked when you breathed on it, but Robert saw the possibility the way other men see. Blue sky after rain. We spent our first summer sanding floorboards until our knuckles bled. He'd whistle old country songs, and I'd follow with the harmony even when I was too tired to hit the notes. By fall, the house smelled like lemon oil and new beginnings. That scent never left the wood. Even now, if you open the closet in the hallway, you can still catch a trace of it. Robert died 3 years ago, a heart attack on a Tuesday morning in the barn. 1 minute, he was fixing the gate latch. The next, he was gone. I found him lying beside the hay bales, sunlight falling across his face as if heaven had already claimed him. Since then, the farmhouse has been my anchor. It's where I still set 2 plates at dinner out of habit, where the floor still creaks at the exact spot he used to kiss my forehead goodnight, where silence hums louder than any radio station ever could. Emily was our only child. Born when I was 39, she arrived late and loud, a miracle after a decade of prayers whispered between hospital visits and heartbreaks. Robert called her our sunrise. He built a swing for her behind the barn, still hangs there, paint flaking, ropes frayed but strong. As a child, Emily was curious and gentle. She'd follow Robert around the fields, asking questions about tractors, seasons, clouds, but somewhere between college and adulthood, curiosity turned into ambition and ambition into comparison. City life changed her. When she moved to Columbus for work, she started talking in numbers and upgrades, square footage, job titles, brands. I was proud, truly, but I also missed the girl who used to dance barefoot in the kitchen with peanut butter smudged cheeks. She met Daniel Miller at a charity gala, and within a year, a ring was on her finger and a Pinterest board full of perfection. When she called to say they wanted a destination-style wedding, I laughed, thinking she meant the church hall by the river. Then, she sent me the brochure, the Haven Vineyard Estate. $20,000 just to reserve the date. Mom, it's a once-in-a-lifetime event, she said. Her voice sparkled through the phone, full of champagne and dream dust. Daniel's family is helping, but we still need to come up with part of the payment. I'll figure it out. I didn't ask how. Maybe I should have. Weeks later, she came home for dinner. Spring light stretched long across the porch, and I roasted chicken the way Robert liked it, crispy skin, rosemary from the garden. Emily arrived in heels, too high for country gravel. She hugged me quickly, air kissing more than contact, then scanned the room like an appraiser checking inventory. Mom, you should really think about selling this place someday, she said, fork barely touching her food. It's way too big for you alone. Imagine what you could do with the money. Travel, move closer to me, live somewhere modern. I smiled because that's what mothers do when their hearts crack a little. This house is my travel, I said. Every room is a destination. She rolled her eyes gently, like I'd spoken in another century. We finished dinner in half an hour, and the full distance. When she left that night, I stood on the porch and watched her taillights fade down the dirt road. Wind pushed through the cornfields, whispering like Robert's voice. She's still learning, Maggie. Give her time. The next few months slipped by in routine. Morning walks to the mailbox. Coffee at the diner with old friends who all talked about blood pressure more than the weather. Sometimes I'd sit in Robert's old truck, parked behind the barn, and let the engine idle just to hear something familiar alive again. Emily called less, but when she did, she sounded anxious. Wedding planning, guest lists, venues falling through, deposits due. I tried to remind her that marriage wasn't about chandeliers but about holding hands through storms. She'd laugh, say, "Mom, times have changed." Maybe they had. One Thursday afternoon, the phone rang again. Her tone was sugary. "Careful, Mom. Quick question. Do you still own the farmhouse outright? I mean, no mortgage, right?" I told her yes, of course. Robert had paid it off 15 years ago. There was a pause. Then she changed the subject to table linens. That night, unease settled over me like dust on forgotten furniture. But love makes you deaf to warning bells, and I wanted to believe my daughter only meant well. I often talked to Robert at night, not aloud, just in thoughts whispered to the empty side of the bed. "Are we doing okay?" I'd ask, "Did I raise her right?" And sometimes I'd imagine him smiling, his deep voice reassurance echoing, "She's our girl. She find her way." But grief has a way of turning even faith into fragile glass. Every creak in the house felt like a memory. Walking out, every letter from the electric company felt like another tie to the living world, while mine was still tethered to the one that had gone. When spring came again, lilacs bloomed outside the kitchen window, the ones Robert planted for our 25th anniversary. Their scent filled the house, heavy and sweet. I remember thinking, maybe this year will be lighter. I didn't know that by summer's end, the scent of lilacs would remind me of loss all over again. The first real crack came on a Sunday morning in early June. I was weeding the garden when my phone buzzed. Emily's name glowed on the screen. "Mom," she said, voice too bright, "good news. The vineyard called back. They can still fit us in for July, if we pay the deposit this week." "That's wonderful," I said, wiping dirt from my gloves. "I thought your date was for next year." "They had a cancellation." "It's a sign, don't you think?" She laughed, quick and nervous. "We just have to pay half up front." "How much is half?" 10,000. Number hit like a gust of wind, leaving me breathless. "I know, it's a lot." She hurried on, "But Daniel and I agreed we can make it work. We'll just have to get a little creative. Maybe sell a few things." I thought she meant furniture. Maybe her old car. The words came so casually that I didn't look for danger in them. I simply said, "You've always had Robert's determination." She sighed, relieved I hadn't asked questions, and changed the subject to flowers. When we hung up, the air felt heavy. Somewhere in the distance, a thunderstorm rumbled. A week later, I noticed small signs that something had shifted. Emily stopped calling every other day. When she did, her tone was clipped, busy, as if she were juggling more than her schedule. One afternoon, I received a text from her fiancé, "Mrs. Anderson, could you send over the title documents for the farmhouse? Emily said she needs them for insurance verification." "Insurance? For what?" I called Emily immediately. "Why does Daniel need our title documents?" "Relax, Mom," she said. "The venue requires proof of family assets for the wedding planner's payment plan. It's just paperwork, Emily. Those aren't small papers. That's the deed to this house." "I know," she said, sharp now. "You're always so suspicious. Don't you trust me?" Her words stung. I thought of the tiny girl who used to tug at Robert's overalls, begging for piggyback rides, the girl who'd hide behind his leg when the thunder scared her. "I trust you," I said quietly. "I just want to understand." "You will, when it's all done. I promise." And just like that, she hung up. 3 days later, a car I didn't recognize rolled into the driveway. The man who stepped out wore a pressed shirt, sunglasses, and a polite smile. "Mrs. Anderson?" he asked, holding out a clipboard. "I'm from Maple Realty. I just need a quick photo of the property exterior for our listing." "Our what?" I asked. "The farmhouse. Your daughter, Emily Miller, said you approved the listing." I felt the air thin around me. There must be a mistake. "This home isn't for sale." He frowned. "Ma'am, I have the signed authorization right here." He showed me the paper. Emily's handwriting, neat and elegant, looped across the bottom. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The sky spun. "Please leave," I said, voice trembling. He nodded, apologetic, and backed away. His car tires crunched over gravel as he left, leaving me in a silence so deep I could hear my heartbeat echo in my ears. Asterisk. I called Emily over and over that night. No answer. Finally, a text. "Mom, I'll explain later. Don't panic." But panic doesn't wait for explanations. It blooms the moment. Trust cracks. By morning, a new message arrived. "I'm coming by this afternoon. Please don't be upset." She arrived at 2, wearing a linen dress and expensive sunglasses, the kind of outfit that looked like it belonged in another life. She hugged me quickly. "You look pale, Mom." You've been working too hard. Tell me what's going on. She glanced toward the window, where the fields shimmered in the summer heat. I know you'll be angry, but please try to see this from my side. The farmhouse belongs to this family, I interrupted. It belonged, she corrected softly. Mom, it's old, falling apart. It's just sitting here collecting dust. Daniel and I decided, I decided it's time to move forward. I sold it. The words were knives. You, what? I sold it, she repeated. We're closing next week. I sank into the nearest chair. The kitchen suddenly felt smaller. The air smelled like burnt toast, though nothing was cooking. You had no right, I whispered. It's in my name now, Mom. You transferred ownership after Dad died, remember? You said it was to make inheritance easier. Yes, I said, to make your life easier, not to give you permission to erase ours. She looked down at her manicured hands. I needed the money for the wedding. It's only for Daniel's family is paying for everything else. I couldn't show up empty-handed. You sold your father's life's work for a party. Tears pricked her eyes. It's not just a party, Mom. It's my future. Don't make me feel guilty for wanting something beautiful. Beautiful, I said, my voice cracking. Do you know what's beautiful, Emily? The way your father sanded every beam in this house until his hands bled. The way he built this porch is so you could watch sunsets safely. The way he believed in you when you didn't believe in yourself. Her jaw tightened. You always turn everything into a lecture. You think Dad was perfect. He wasn't. He didn't understand what it's like to start over in today's world. And you don't understand what it's like to lose everything that reminds you he existed. We stared at each other across the table, two women bound by blood, separated by grief and pride. Then she stood. It's done, Mom. The papers are signed. The money's already in the account. She left without looking back. The screen door slammed, rattling the walls. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked through every room of the farmhouse, the parlor, the kitchen. Robert's study. Each corner carried his fingerprint. The dent in the doorframe where he'd misjudged the hammer swing. The initials carved on the pantry shelf. R+M+E. I touched the letters with my fingers, the wood worn smooth from years of life. How do I forgive this? I whispered into the dark. The house didn't answer. Only the old pipes sighed, tired of holding secrets. The next morning, the realtor's car returned with two men and measuring tools. I watched from the window as they walked the property, pointing at the barn, the garden, the maple trees Robert planted our first year here. Is this the Anderson place? One of them asked. The realtor, he said, belongs to a couple from Chicago now. They're tearing down the barn, building a pool. Tearing down the barn. Something inside me snapped. I stormed outside, gravel crunching under my slippers. You can't, I said, voice shaking. You can't just destroy it. The men stopped, startled. Ma'am, we're just assessing the site. This barn isn't a site, I said. It's my husband's hands, his sweat, his laughter. You don't assess that. They exchanged uncertain looks. The realtor lowered his clipboard. Mrs. Anderson, I'm sorry. The transaction's legal. Maybe speak to your daughter. I turned away, eyes burning. The barn doors creaked behind me, and for a moment, I could almost hear Robert's radio playing old country songs. The memory hit so sharply it took my breath. That evening, Emily called again. I'm sorry about the way you found out, she said. I didn't want to upset you before the wedding. Upset me, I said quietly. Emily, you've broken something that can't be fixed. It's just a house, Mom. No, I said. It's a promise. There was silence. Then, softly, you'll still come to the wedding, right? I wanted to hang up, but I didn't. I don't know, I said. Right now, I'm not sure who I'd be watching walk down that aisle, my daughter or a stranger. She sniffed. I wish Dad were here. He'd understand. He would, I said. And he'd still be disappointed. The next days blurred together. Trucks came and went. The sign appeared in the yard. Neighbors stopped by, offering casseroles and pity. At night, I'd sit on the porch until the stars blurred, wondering when my daughter's dreams had grown so expensive that they required selling her father's love. Sometimes, in the quiet, I thought I could hear Robert's voice, carried by the wind, low and steady. Maggie, let her learn. Pain teaches what comfort never can. I didn't want to learn. I wanted my family back. The final time Emily visited before the sale closed, she was radiant. Wedding glow, they call it. She brought color swatches for bridesmaids' dresses, talked about floral arches and gourmet menus. You should see the ballroom, Mom. It's breathtaking. I'm sure it is, I said. She noticed the distance in my tone, but didn't address it as she left. She paused at the doorway, Mom, she said softly, one day you'll see I did what I had to. Life moves forward. I looked past her, out to the fields turning gold in the late sun. Then I hope your forward doesn't forget where it came from. She blinked, guilt flickering in her eyes, then forced a smile. Love you, Mom. The door clicked shut behind her. That night, thunder rolled again, same as it had the day she first mentioned the deposit. Lightning flashed across the windows, illuminating Robert's portrait above the mantel. I stared at his kind, steady face and whispered, You built a home, Robert. She built a dream, and somehow, both are gone. The farmhouse creaked, and rain began to fall, soft at first, then heavy, as if the sky itself understood what it meant to lose something that once held the family together. The closing day arrived, wrapped in silence, no calls, no warnings, just the dull knock of the courier at 9 a.m. He handed me an envelope to sign. I recognized Emily's handwriting in the return address, and something inside me caved. Inside were 2 pages, the final deed transfer, already notarized, and a short note. Mom, please don't be angry. The money helped us secure the venue and finish paying vendors. You'll always have the memories, and I promise to make new ones with you after the wedding. Love, Emily. I read it 3 times, hoping a different meaning might appear, but the words stayed selfishly still. Outside, the realtor's truck idled by the fence. He tipped his hat politely as I signed. Paper over love, ink over history. When the truck drove away, dust lifted like smoke from a funeral. The new owners moved in fasted people who smiled too wide and said, We just adore country charm. They brought boxers, hired contractors, and replaced the porch swing with modern furniture. From my window, in the guest house, I watched them repaint the barn white. Robert's deep red vanished beneath primer strokes. I lasted 3 days before calling Emily. You need to come home, I said. Mom, we're finalizing the seating chart. This isn't about chairs. Emily, it's about your father. Her sigh sounded rehearsed. Please, don't start. You make me feel guilty every time we talk. I'm not trying to make you feel anything. I'm asking you to face what you've done. You think I haven't? I cry every night. Mom, her voice cracked. But this wedding, it's everything I've worked for. Everyone expects it to be perfect. Perfection built on loss isn't perfection, I said quietly. She hung up. 2 weeks later, the invitation arrived. Ivory card, gold foil lettering, Emily and Daniel. July 17th, the Haven Vineyard. I turned it over in my hands. The paper smelled faintly of lavender, like the perfume Emily wore as a teenager. I told myself I wouldn't go. Then I saw Robert's photo on the mantel, his grin. The day we finished the farmhouse roof, and I heard his voice. Family doesn't heal apart, Maggie. So I ironed my dress, packed a small bag, and went. The vineyard shimmered in late summer light. Rows of grapes rolled toward the horizon, and white tents fluttered like sails in the breeze. Everywhere I looked was money string lights, polished wood tables, imported flowers. Emily was radiant in lace and silk. When she saw me, surprise flashed across her face, followed by relief. You came, she whispered, eyes shining. I promised your father I'd see you happy, I said. She hugged me, perfume sweet and dizzying. Then, stay for the reception, okay? Please. I nodded. I'd already decided to stay until the end to watch her own choices unfold fully before the weight of them found her. The ceremony was flawless. Vows under the oak tree, violins sighing in the wind. But when the photographer lined up family portraits, and someone asked where Emily's father was buried, she froze. In Maple Creek, I answered for her, beside the farmhouse he built. Gasps of admiration rippled through the guests. How romantic, one woman said. Emily smiled stiffly, avoiding my gaze. When the music started, I slipped away toward the edge of the vineyard, where fireflies blinked over the grass. For a moment, I imagined Robert standing beside me, hands in his pockets, head tilted toward the stars. She's beautiful, isn't she? I murmured to the doc. He didn't answer, but I felt the stillness deepened the way silence does when truth is near. I called Emily over and over that night. No answer. Finally, a text. Mom, I'll explain later. Don't panic. At the reception, champagne flowed. Laughter rose like heat from the dance floor. I sat alone at a corner table, watching my daughter swirl in her husband's arms. The joy on her face looked almost real. Then the band took a break, and she came to me. Mom, are you having fun? I'm watching you, I said. That's enough. She leaned close. Can we not talk about the house tonight, please? I opened my purse and slid a small object across the table. Robert's old pocket knife, the one he carried every day. I found this in the barn before they painted over it. Her breath caught. You kept it. It was buried under the floorboards. I thought you might want to hold something of his since you let go of everything else. Her face flushed. That's not fair. No, I said. Neither was selling a lifetime for an afternoon. Tears gathered, but she blinked them away. I can't do this here. She stood, veil trembling behind her, and disappeared into the vineyard. I followed minutes later, through rows of vines heavy with fruit. The night smelled of soil and distant thunder. Emily, I called. She turned, mascara streaked. Why can't you just be proud of me? Proud? I asked softly. You built your dream by tearing down your father's. I built a life. She shot back. A future. You don't understand what it's like to struggle now. Everything costs more expectations, appearances. Daniel's parents didn't raise you. We did. We taught you love, not image. She folded her arms, shivering. You think Dad would take your side? I don't need sides. I need my daughter to look me in the eye and admit she hurt me. Her lip trembled. I did it for us, Mom. I wanted you to move closer to me. I thought if I took the burden away, you'd finally live. The farmhouse wasn't a burden, I said. It was my memory of him. Lightning flashed far off, white across the vines. For a heartbeat, she looked 12 again, scared, small, desperate to be forgiven. I can't undo it, she whispered. No, I said, stepping closer, but you can stop pretending it didn't matter. Rain began to fall, soft at first. She didn't move. I keep dreaming he's still there, she said, voice shaking. Every night, I see Dad at the gate, waving me inside, and I wake up crying. I thought selling the house would stop it. I reached out, brushed a wet strand of hair from her face. Selling what haunts you doesn't heal you. Facing it does. She leaned into me then, sobbing against my shoulder, and for a moment, we were mother and child again, not judge and sinner. When she finally pulled back, her eyes were swollen but clearer. What do I do now? Start by remembering who you are, I said, and who he was. The storm passed before midnight. Back inside, the guests danced again, pretending nothing had happened. Emily and Daniel cut the cake, fed each other bites between laughter that sounded more human, this time less performance, more fragile truth. When I left, she hugged me longer than before. Thank you for coming, she whispered. I kissed her cheek. You'll always have my love, Emily, but love isn't blind anymore. She nodded, tears shining in the twinkle lights. Back home, the farmhouse lights no longer burned, but the fields glowed silver under the moon. I sat in the empty porch chair, Robert's knife in my palm. The metal was warm from my pocket, shaped by decades of his touch. For the first time in months, I let myself cry without shame. For him, for her, for everything time takes when you're not looking. The next morning, I made coffee and called the new owners. Would it be all right? I asked. If I visited the garden once in a while, my husband planted the lilacs there. The woman on the phone hesitated, then said gently, Of course, Mrs. Anderson, you're always welcome. I thanked her, hung up, and sat quietly watching dawn stretch across the fields. Some losses you don't fix. You fold them into the rhythm of living. A week later, Emily called. Her voice was tentative. Daniel and I are canceling the honeymoon. We want to pay you back part of what the house sold for. You don't owe me money, I said, just honesty. I'm coming home next weekend, she said. Maybe we can go to the farmhouse together, say goodbye properly. I'd like that. When she arrived, we walked the old path behind the barn. The new owners had trimmed the hedges, but Robert's maple tree still stood strong. Emily knelt, pressing her hand against the soil. He loved this view. He did, I said. He used to say this was where the world slowed down enough to listen. She smiled through tears. Maybe one day I'll understand that. You will, I said. When the noise of wanting fades, the quiet will teach you what matters. We stood together under the maple tree until the sun dipped low, and the air smelled like home again. The weeks after our visit to the farmhouse felt gentler than I expected. Grief no longer arrived. Like a storm, it moved through me like rain over tilled soil, leaving things quieter, Cleaner. Emily called often, sometimes just to tell me what she was cooking for dinner, or which movie she and Daniel had watched. Those small, ordinary details, how the lasagna turned out, how the cat got stuck in the cupboard, were proof that ordinary life was growing again between us. One morning in late August, I woke to sunlight spilling through lace curtains. The smell of percolating coffee filled the kitchen. The same brand Robert used to insist tasted like real mornings. I carried my cup onto the porch and sat in the rocking chair. The fields shimmered in dew, and for the first time, I didn't feel like a ghost in my own story. I'd been avoiding Robert's toolbox since the sale. It sat in the shed of the guest house. The new owners let me keep. That day, I opened it. Inside were wrenches arranged in perfect order, a few screws, and a folded piece of paper that smelled faintly of sawdust. Robert's handwriting was unmistakable, steady, unhurried. If this box ever leaves our house, make sure the hands that open it know work is love made visible. I ran my thumb across the words. He hadn't left instructions or confessions, just a reminder. Love wasn't something you kept. It was something you built, again and again. That afternoon, I drove into town and bought packets of seeds, lock sunflower, and wild grass. I called Emily. Come this weekend, I said. We're planting something. Saturday dawned warm and windless. Emily arrived wearing jeans and a plain shirt. She looked younger, softer. Daniel trailed behind, carrying gardening gloves. We stood behind the barn where the soil still remembered Robert's touch. Emily knelt beside me, digging small trenches with her hands. What are we planting? She asked. Patience, I said, smiling, and forgiveness, if it grows. She laughed. Small, genuine. I'll water that one twice. For hours, we worked quietly, sweat mixed with earth. The rhythm of digging and planting steadied our breaths. At noon, we sat under the maple tree and shared lemonade. Mom, she said after a while, I keep thinking about what you said at the vineyard, that selling what haunts you doesn't heal you. You were right. I wasn't trying to be right, I said. I was trying to keep you from losing what matters. I already did, she whispered, but I'm starting to understand why you held on so tightly. That house wasn't just wood and nails. It was everything you two built together. I nodded. And everything you came from. She brushed soil from her palms. Do you hate me for what I did? Hate isn't the word, I said. Hate ends stories. We still have chapters left. That evening, Emily cooked dinner in my small kitchen. She burned the chicken, and we laughed until the smoke alarm joined in. When she left, she hugged me for a long time. Dad would be proud of you, she said. I shook my head. He'd be proud of us. We're learning. After she drove away, I stood outside beneath a sky full of crickets and remembered how Robert used to tilt his head to listen to their chorus. They sing because they must, he'd say, even when no one claps. The memory didn't hurt anymore. It hummed like background music, sad but steady. September brought cooler air and quiet evenings. Emily and Daniel visited every Sunday. They helped repair the fence around the lilac bed we'd planted. Once, while hammering nails, Daniel paused. I never understood what this place meant to you until now, he said. It feels alive. It is, I told him. It just needed hands to remember it. A few days later, Emily handed me an envelope. Inside was a check, half of what she'd earned selling her wedding blog stories to a magazine. They asked me to write about the farmhouse, she said, about what I lost and what I learned. I wanted to give something back. I looked at the amount, then tore the check neatly in two. Keep it, I said. Start a foundation for something that lasts longer than flowers and photographs. Maybe plant gardens near your city apartment. She laughed through tears. You'd really rather have flowers than money. Yes, I said. Flowers return every year. Money never remembers who you were when you earned it. That winter, frost glazed the windows, turning the world soft and white. On Christmas Eve, Emily and Daniel arrived with a surprise, a framed photograph of the farmhouse before the sale. Robert, standing on the porch, Emily on his shoulders, both waving at the camera. I hung it above the mantel. When the lights from the tree reflected off the glass, it looked like they were still moving, waving across time. After dinner, we sat by the fire. Emily leaned her head against my shoulder. Mom, I used to think love meant giving everything to your partner. Now I think it means remembering who helped you learn how to love. I kissed her hair. Your father would agree. Outside, snow began to fall. The lilac bed slept beneath it, waiting for spring. When spring came again, The new owners invited us for coffee. They'd kept the barn standing after all. I thought you'd like to see this, the woman said, leading us inside. A small plaque hung on the wall. Robert Anderson Barn, built by hand, kept by heart. Emily touched the metal with trembling fingers. They kept his name. Yes, I said softly, because kindness carries farther than ownership. We thanked them and walked to the maple tree. Beneath it, the wild grass weed planted rippled like green water. The lilacs had bloomed early, thick with fragrance. Emily closed her eyes and inhaled. Smells like home. It is home, I said, not because of who owns it, but because of who remembers it. That night, I wrote in my journal, something I hadn't done in years. Love doesn't die when the house sells or the fields change hands. It survives in what we rebuild, in the forgiveness we plant, in the hands that keep turning soil into memory. When I put down the pen, I realized my chest felt light for the first time since Robert's death. In the end, losing the farmhouse taught me something I never learned while living in it. Walls can fall, deeds can change names, but love, the kind built through work, sacrifice, and forgiveness, never moves out. I still walk those fields sometimes, touching the lilac petals, listening for Robert's whistle in the wind. Emily joins me now and then. We don't talk much. We don't have to. The quiet between us has become safe again. If you're watching or reading this, maybe you know what it's like to lose something that once held your family together. Maybe you've stood where I stood, wondering if love can survive disappointment. It can. It always can. Would you forgive your child for selling your memories for their dreams? I did, and somehow, that forgiveness became the only dream worth keeping. Asterisk.